Part 110. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1118. Shang Guandandan held an arm-long piece of lobster meat, opened his mouth, and glanced sideways at Lu Chang'an. He was indeed looking at himself. So Shang Guandandan didn't stuff a whole piece of lobster meat into his mouth. After all, after stuffing it all into her mouth, the Queen Mother was controlled by the long lobster meat and could not speak for a short period of time. Lu Chang'an would take the opportunity to frame or slander her, leaving the Queen Mother unable to fight back with words. Thus, in today's mother-son battle, total defeat. It's so hard to guard against. Thinking this, Shang Guandandan held up the lobster meat with lingering fear, then moved closer to Lu Chang'an and opened his mouth with a ah sound. Lu Chang'an stuffed a skewer of beef over and let her bite off a piece of snowflake beef that was juicy and dripping with delicious fat-like pulp. Not only did he not help me call for business, but he also asked me to feed her beef. After Lu Chang'an fed her 3 skewers, he felt more and more that he should not bring Guandandan with him when he went out to do business today. Zhou Dongdong disappeared immediately, and he still had to pay wages. Once Lu Chang'an no longer wanted to pay wages, he would be spat on by countless people, threatened and scolded in various ways, which was simply unreasonable. Shang Guandandan continued As for what Lu Chang'an was chirping, the Queen Mother didn't really care. Moths just like to talk useless words, and the Queen Mother's soft ears would automatically filter them out. You two dear friends, you should try it too. The men in black next to Sumei were basically strangers, but Lu Chang'an was warm and hospitable. Seeing them standing far away and looking around, doing their duty, he also gave 2 skewers. As a token of appreciation for their hard work, I hope it can alert Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong, who only know how to eat and drink. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Lu. The 2 men in black quickly thanked them. Just standing aside, the men in black were drooling. Several people stood in front of the barbecue stall eating and drinking together, and their devouring appearance finally attracted passers-by to watch. Are you selling skewers? Yeah, want a bunch? Look at this raw material. Looking at the whole world, it's the best. Haha, master is really good at blowing. How many strings are there? 300 beef, 300 red shrimp, 3,000 lobster meat. Goodbye. You walk slowly. Lu Chang'an still had a smile on his face, and he had a good attitude when doing business. Those businesses that used bad attitudes as a gimmick to attract customers were a bit excessive in Lu Chang'an's opinion, and those who flocked here because of this were more or less a little bit offended. What a bastard! Of course, this is what he thinks, and it is personal freedom for others to do whatever they like. He doesn't think that people who leave after hearing this price don't have the spending power. The key is that everyone has an expectation of the consumption environment. Can you pay 300 for a barbecue stall set up on the roadside? So Lu Chang'an continued to bake, eat, and wait patiently. By the time the stall was closed, he still had done business worth 3,000 yuan, which was exactly 1/10 of the expected income. He was not dissatisfied. After deducting his own costs and craft money, Lu Chang'an paid Zhou Dongdong a salary of 50 yuan. 50 yuan, Zhou Dongdong held the note with surprise on his face and looked at it over and over. The red envelopes children received during festivals usually only cost 5 yuan, and 2 of them only cost 10 yuan. 50 yuan, a huge sum of money. What's more, the large denomination banknotes we usually see are usually 100 yuan, and 50 yuan is very rare. Zhou Dongdong put 50 yuan into his pocket and patted it hard. In addition to buying gifts for his mother, he might also be able to go to the canteen more than once. When Shang Guandandan saw Lu Chang'an closing the stall, he started to eat her lobster meat. He just stuffed 2 pieces into his mouth and watched blankly as Zhou Dongdong received 50 yuan. Now the Queen Mother had no way to speak, so she had to put her hands together and hold them high in front of Lu Chang'an, indicating that she should also be paid. Zhou Dongdong at least wore a pair of strings. What did you do? Tell me a reason for getting paid. Lu Chang'an looked at Shang Guandandan leisurely. Her cheeks were not bulging, but Lu Chang'an knew very well that as long as he slapped her cheeks with his hands, she would open her mouth like a fish in water, revealing a mouthful of lobster meat. Shang Guandandan's eyes widened. She was now controlled by the lobster meat and could not speak at all. However, her trick of staring at the other person and using the majesty in her eyes to make her wishes come true was useless in front of Lu Chang'an. As expected, he was still plotting against him. This terrible bad moth would definitely jump up and bite Shang Guandandan's neck when he finished eating the lobster meat. Look, you can't even give me a reason. Lu Chang'an achieved victory today and nodded in appreciation of his strategy. At this time, Zhou Shuling came out after closing the shop, and Lu Chang'an handed her the beef skewers and shrimp skewers that had been packaged for a late-night snack. Zhou Shuling looked at Lu Xin's big belly hanging a little dangling from her waist, then looked at Zhou Dongdong's current body shape, then touched her lower abdomen, hesitantly holding the packing box and putting it behind her. Everything was already once it's done, it's wasted if you don't eat it. Yes, it must not be wasted. With this good reason, the anxiety about gaining weight will not be so serious. You are eating the nutrients I gave you every day. If your metabolism is strong, your figure will not be too out of shape. Lu Chang'an saw the reason for Zhou Shuling's hesitation and said with a smile. Then I'll eat less. How about I leave you 2-3 shrimps? Zhou Shuling pulled up her skirt a little embarrassedly to cover her plump buttocks. She always felt that her recent figure was a bit like Li's. Hongfang and Teacher Qin moved closer, but she was not as tall as them, so she would definitely not look good. Lu Chang'an said that she wouldn't be too out of shape, which meant that there was still a risk of being out of shape a little bit. Eat them all, Lu Chang'an ordered. Zhou Shuling pouted and ate everything she ate. When she really gained weight, she would blame him and put it all on him. Zhongqing ordered people to clean up Lu Chang'an's stall, so that he, the owner of the barbecue stall, only needed to leave with the money he earned. Let's go for a walk. Zhongqing indicated that she wanted to chat with Lu Chang'an. She also held a bottle of malt beer specially brewed by her own winery in her hand. Yeah, Lu Chang'an nodded. It was quite comfortable to chat with Zhongqing, especially after she finished drinking. She didn't smell as bad as the alcohol on other women, but because of her unique body fragrance. After mixing with the smell of alcohol, there was a wonderful smell that made people want to take a bite of her, just like food. He watched Zhou Shuling drive Zhou Dongdong and the dog away, leading Shang Guandandan away, who was still thinking about the 50 yuan salary, and walked back to the other side with Zhongqing. He took the beer from Zongqing's hand, opened the bottle cap with his fingers, took a sip and gave it back to Zhongqing. Zhongqing glanced at Lu Chang'an, and took a sip from the bottle. It was common for familiar friends to drink like this, but this was his first time, and the person was actually Lu Chang'an. He didn't seem to be so close to others, right? I don't know if it was an illusion, but the beer that Lu Chang'an took a sip of had a wonderful and intoxicating unique taste in his mouth, making him feel tipsy and intoxicated. You said you could be my godfather, does that still count? Zhongqing tilted his head, not really drunk, but his eyes were blurred. That time in Zongqing's car, the two of them talked about this topic. Zhongqing also bought some clothes with a few pounds of fabric. Later, when he tried them on, he would occasionally take a few selfies and send them to him. Although it was a bit of a joke at the time, Lu Chang'an kept his word, so he nodded, no problem, it just so happens that I haven't accepted my daughter for a long time. Hearing his straightforward agreement, Zhongqing was a little caught off guard, and then he had some strange feelings in his heart. It seemed that a new relationship would be established from now on, which would dilute the torturous ambiguity hidden in his heart. But seems to be closer to nature. Call me godfather. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhongqing with rosy cheeks. Zhongqing opened her mouth. Faced with Lu Chang'an's casual attitude, she couldn't scream. It would be much easier if he looked like Professor Lu. Recalling the first time he knew such a person like him, and now today, Zhongqing couldn't help but laugh. He raised his hand and slapped Lu Chang'an. I hate it. Let me tell you, this village will no longer exist after this store, Lu Chang'an warned carefully. Is he someone who just gives opportunities casually? It's rare that I want to take in a goddaughter for fun. What do you mean? After passing this store, there will be no village anymore. Why do you imitate Miss San's speech? Zhongqing also laughed. Lu Chang'an didn't even notice the speech impediment. When he came to his senses, he remembered that this was what Zhu Huntang often said, this tortured and polluting little mutton skewer. Seeing that he was slightly dazed, Zhongqing stood up on her heels slightly. Her calves wrapped in dark stockings were stretched straight, her waist was straight and her buttocks were becoming fuller, and her swan-like neck made her head-up posture carry with her. With some grace, she softly shouted in his ear, "Godfather." The voice was delicate, as if it had a sugary and moist breath that clung to his ears. Good child, Lu Chang'an smiled and patted her back gently. In fact, this was just a joke after all. Zhongqing neither needs anyone to take care of him nor is he lacking. No, Zongqing's father might as well not have it. Could it be that because she often saw Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang's loving father and daughter, she yearned for her, and she really had some expectations for this godfather? So Lu Chang'an took a handful of the cash he earned today and gave it to Zhongqing. According to tradition, red envelopes are given. I don't know where to find red envelopes, so just make do with it, as long as it comes to your heart. Zhongqing took it and counted it in his hand. He felt even more satisfied than when he received the salary in his account. He said angrily, "How can anyone just say that they get what they want?" Lu Chang'an took a sip of wine and pointed to Building 2 of Bailong Center. "How about we go upstairs and have a drink with her?" She of course refers to the third wife. Zhongqing remembered that during the Chinese New Year, he met Lu Chang'an in front of the coffin shop. He asked her to take 2 bottles of wine and go back to the hotel with Bai Hui to drink some. Bai Hui also asked him delicately if he wanted to drink together. At that time, Zhongqing thought that 2 women were drinking in a hotel, and you wanted to invite a man. What were you thinking? Now he is looking for 2 women to drink together. What is he thinking about? In short, no matter what he really wants, Zhongqing is willing to do it even if he really wants it. Sorry, today is so short. I will work hard next year, at least I won't update a chapter after such a long interval. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1119. Su Mei is sampling the cerebral spinal fluid of the fish in the underground laboratory in Building 2 of the Bailong Center. In a sense, Chiu is actually a transformed person. The super-long dormancy ability and lifespan of the offspring born from the union of humans and gods are much better than the modified humans currently created by Su Mei, so they are of great research significance. When I received a call from Zhongqing and learned that she had invited Lu Chang'an to drink together, I couldn't help but feel a little satisfied. The bed-warming maid was still very capable of pestering people. Therefore, it is not that Zhu Huntang wants to bring in Bai Hui, who is born to be a little vixen. After all, the effect of strength in numbers has already been reflected, and among these people, he will eventually occupy the most. A strong and dominant position. Your cerebral spinal fluid is very good, Su Mei complimented Chiu casually to appease his angry mood, and then hurriedly left and went to the locker room to change clothes. Su Mei came to the wine tasting room and found that besides Lu Chang'an and Zhongqing, there was also Li Hongfang. It turned out that Li Hongfang came to Lu Chang'an to report about Dong Guanghuang, so Lu Chang'an called her in. Anyway, Li Hongfang also wanted to tell Su Mei about the cooperation plan with Qin's Assis reformer. Except for Zhu Huntang, all the leaders of the Zhu family were gathered together. Su Mei calmly sat next to Lu Chang'an. showing her strong and dominant demeanor. "Everyone is here, let's chat while drinking." Su-mei raised her hand and motioned for everyone to sit down. The other hand gently held Lu Chang'an's arm, frowning slightly but not dissatisfied, and said in confusion, "Why does the clothes smell like barbecue? Is it a bit like the tone and feeling of an ordinary couple chatting?" Su-mei looked around to see if other people felt the same way. Yes, everyone felt the same way. Su-mei didn't taste other people's eyes carefully, but that should be the case. "I just got some barbecue ingredients from the kitchen over there and went to set up a barbecue stall. I basically ate it myself. There were also people who wanted to try it when they saw others selling it very expensively. I made more than $3,000 business," Lu Chang'an said as he glanced in the direction of the porch. Zhu Huntang must have finished her evening classes. It was when she was actively joining in the fun, but she didn't come over and didn't know what she was doing. "It's quite fun. Who are you playing with?" Su-mei also looked at the time and asked. Zhongqing quickly reported, "Dan Dan and Dong Dong." Sister Xiaoling came over to take a look after closing the shop, and I was there too. Sure enough, it was these people. Zhou Shuling had closed her shop at this time, but she still had the time to join in the fun, while Su-mei was collecting Chiu's cerebral spinal fluid. Thinking about it, Su-mei felt a little ashamed. After all, she was simple-minded and proud. Unlike some people who always try to get close to him at every opportunity. "Brother Lu, call me next time you set up a stall." Li Hongfang has always been proactive as long as he can do things for Brother Lu. Back then, when we were visiting places, we would often pretend to be small vendors. My pancake and fruit stall was called a professional. Once I directly developed a group of repeat customers, which almost made me want to change my career. "Talk about your business." Lu Chang'an frowned. He didn't know what was going on with this Li Hongfang. He was obviously pretty good looking. His cat-like face was not very delicate, but he was very distinctive and had a good figure, especially, in short, she is such a woman. As long as she opens her mouth to speak, she will make people feel like what's going on with this person. Look at Zhongqing, he has a lot of little thoughts. He also likes to tease Lu Chang'an or seduce him secretly, but he can grasp the propriety so that he will not make people feel disgusted. When he speaks, he will never speak softly. Some people wish she would just shut up. It's like this. Li Hongfang told the story about Dong Wanghuang. She was wearing a Hunan University uniform. I suspect that she planned to have contact with Brother Lu through a campus encounter. As for later, she used a beauty trap. What kind of trap did you fall into, or some other insidious and cunning plot, is not something that a simple-minded person like me can figure out. Because Brother Lu is here, Li Hongfang does not dare to analyze casually. With Brother Liu's wisdom, he has his own sense of proportion. When he takes the initiative to ask Li Hongfang for advice, it is time for her to show off her skills. Yes, except for wanting to kill someone from time to time, you have always been very innocent, Lu Chang'an agreed. Li Hongfang nodded. Like Zhou Shuling, she is a traditional and ordinary woman. Her job is also the manager of a rice noodle shop. Such women are very simple, not just those with her body and appearance, but they can do it. Everyone knows what happened. Haha, we met on campus. Su-mei sneered softly. Maybe she was also a little foxy, but she was still so uncreative. Su-mei couldn't help but think of the brief encounter between Su Nangxiu and Lu Chang'an on campus. It was ordinary, but it also had the flavor of a relationship that lasted for a long time, which was completely different from the clumsy calculation of this little vixen who suddenly jumped out. "Qin Zici doesn't know much about Dong Guanghuang?" Lu Chang'an asked. "No. I feel that the information held by their department has not been updated in time. They may have a better understanding of the development of these alien beasts overseas, their contact and coexistence with other countries, and the initial movements of the alien beasts when they appeared, but for after the alien beasts truly entered human society, the group behavior and individual information were completely confused. After Dong Huang left, Li Hongfang had further exchanges with Qin Ziyi in the hotel. Although Qin Ziyi interfered with Li Hongfang's creative inspiration, she still knew the importance. As long as she worked hard and diligently for Brother Lu, she would be rewarded. If she devoted herself to creating a story with Brother Lu and herself as the male and female protagonists, she would probably only get beaten. That is to say, Qin Ziyi's department is still in control of the overall situation, and now Qin Ziyi is assigned to carry out more detailed work. This is the consistent style of the relevant departments within the system, and there is no problem. Lu Chang'an nodded, "This thing Huang, I will contact you." According to Li Hongfang's description, Lu Chang'an has realized that the new player An Nuan mentioned, who has 3 balls slapping back and forth on the field as soon as he plays, is probably Dong Huang. Li Hongfang gave some detailed documents of her negotiation with Qin Ziyi to Su Mei for review. Su Mei just flipped through it casually and handed it back to Li Hongfang. "You can figure it out. According to my past experience, in addition to Qin Ziyi, there will probably be people who come from the air to give instructions. Such people will often boss around and feel that we are not the same as others. It is their obligation to cooperate, and you must accept their jurisdiction, guidance, supervision, and even pick peaches directly. Please pay attention to this situation and don't embarrass me." Su Mei knew that because of her previous job, Li Hongfang was always at a disadvantage when facing people with Qin Ziyi's status. "Yes, Qin Ziyi is like that." Li Hongfang nodded with deep understanding. "Perhaps through this Dong Huang, we can completely understand the real reason why the alien beasts gathered in Junsha." Lu Chang'an had suspected that these alien beasts coming to Junsha had something to do with Shangguan Dandan. It's just that when Shangguan Dandan has something to do, he wanders around Posa Street, Taifu Temple, Wenhiu, Huangxing Road, and other places. Next to it is the Jifang West Road Bar Street where alien beasts like to hang out. There will always be alien beasts who have seen Shangguan Dan. But they did not take any action against Shangguan Dandan. Hu Gao was frightened by Shangguan Dandan when they met at Nanshan Ranch and ran away. It seemed that Shangguan Dandan was not the Nuwa Empress they had been chasing and admiring. This one is called Dong Huang, and I feel like she has something to do with Shangguan Dandan. Could she be just another piece of Shangguan Dandan's feather? As for whether Dong Huang Phoenix is another phoenix, Lu Chang'an doesn't think so. How could an extraordinary life of this level be born and appear so easily? Lu Chang'an had been doing this for many years, and the number of his kindred spirits had changed from 1 to 2, this newly added 2 still felt more or less stunted. Let's see what abilities she has. If she's not honest, capture her and show her to the third lady. Zhongqing noticed, it's like a mirage. Lu Chang'an and Su Mei nodded together, looked at each other again, and suddenly felt that it was unnecessary. Are they doting on this little lamb kebab too much? At this time, Zhang Xinhan selected a few bottles of wine suitable for tasting from the wine cellar and brought them over with fruit plates and snacks. Everyone stopped talking about strange beasts and chatted about various topics while waiting to sober up. Li Hongfang and Zhongqing talked about her rice noodle shop employee uniforms, one of which was inspired by Zhongqing's daily attire. Su Mei contacted Jin Xiaomei and asked what Zhu Huntang was doing now. Lu Chang'an listened with some concern. Anyway, no matter what Zhu Huntang was doing, it was all in a style that would increase blood pressure and make the heart uncomfortable. Zhang Xinhan was watching from the side. Of course, what she paid most attention to was the third wife and Lu Chang'an. There was a natural intimacy between the two. How did the third wife manage to move between the two men with ease? However, she is the third wife, even if she has 200 men. She went to your place to play and was fighting landlords with Shangguan Dandan and Zhou Shuling. Su Mei turned to Lu Chang'an and said. Jin Xiaomei also took a photo of Zhu Huntang holding a pair of slippers before the official start of landlord fighting, with a suspicious expression on his face. Lu Chang'an's brow suddenly wrinkled like a chrysanthemum. He should put away those slippers. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1120. Zhou Dongdong was playing with his tablet computer, while Zhu Huntang, Shang Guandandan, and Zhou Shuling were playing landlord. The four of them were sitting around the electric heating table, and one of them happened to be sitting on one side. Zhu Huntang originally thought the pair of slippers was very suspicious, but Shang Guandandan asked her to fight the landlord, so she temporarily put down the slippers, even though she had some doubts that the slippers might be the same as lychee cans and other items, which are Bimaya's lifelong enemies. After all, she is a filial goddaughter and granddaughter, and a high-level colleague of Zhou Fenglai sword sect, so it is her duty to play cards with Dan Dan, the deputy sect leader. When playing cards, there must be a stake, Zhu Huntang said to the poor queen mother and the proprietress of the rice noodle shop in an imposing manner. Shang Guandandan's only assets are vending machines, electric cars, and TVs that can be sold for some money, while Zhou Shuling only has an old rice noodle shop, shares in a new rice noodle shop under construction, and a dilapidated house. What's the bet? Shang Guandandan touched the payment code card in his sleeve pocket. Facing Zhu Huntang and Zhou Shuling, Shang Guandandan did not underestimate the opponent. After all, Zhu Huntang could create countless rules out of thin air and steal cards to see. A powerful enemy who uses all his cards to his advantage. Let's hit the palm of my hand. If I lose, you can hit my palm, or you can hit Dongdong's palm. Facing Zhu Huntang and Shang Guandandan, Zhou Shuling felt that she had to fight with Zhou Dongdong to gain some confidence. When he heard his name, Zhou Dongdong looked up at his mother, raised his hands and said ouch happily, indicating that although she was playing on the tablet computer, she could also actively join everyone's games. Our bet is Antarctica, Zhu Huntang said. How can you play with money or the palm of your hand so superficially? A world-class entrepreneur like her should have structure and foresight. Among the 9 continents and 5 oceans, Zhu Huntang can only take the development of Antarctica seriously. The geography I studied in junior high school included Antarctica. Apart from this, Zhou Shuling had no impression or understanding of Antarctica. Okay, Antarctica is ours, but we haven't decided how to distribute it. Shang Guandandan and Zhu Huntang had already planned to seize Antarctica and develop it. After the two plan to rob Antarctica, they will launch an artificial sun or something to melt all of Antarctica, build the headquarters of the Kyushu Fenglai sword sect, and capture 1 billion people and put them there as slaves. Antarctica has a total of 14.2 million square kilometers. Zhu Huntang checked the information and waved his hand. Based on the convenience of distribution, the 3 of us will take 12 million square kilometers, and the remaining 2.2 million will be left to others. Okay, Zhou Shuling chuckled. Anyway, she was just playing with them. They could carve up the earth as a bet. Xiaoling, you have to play seriously. If you lose them all, it will be very disadvantageous for you. Shang Guandandan still takes good care of his stupidest daughter-in-law. The others are all crazy, although you have not joined the 9 provinces Wind and Thunder Sword Door, but Dongdong has joined. The more land you occupy, the more important you are, and the more Lu Chang'an will definitely like you. Ah, what? Zhou Shuling blushed while pinching her clothes. Now, it's not like before. When others tease her about her relationship with Lu Chang'an, she becomes embarrassed and nervous. She's afraid that it will affect their daily interactions and make Lu Chang'an feel like he needs to keep a distance from her. He doesn't seem to be like this at all. When faced with these ridicules and jokes, he doesn't even have the intention to explain. Dealing with her as a family member every day always makes Zhou Shuling feel warm and slightly sweet in her heart. She just wishes that life will always be like this, and she will not be greedy to covet more. She is already very happy. Li Hongfang often claims that she is an ordinary and traditional woman like Zhou Shuling, but in fact only Zhou Shuling is such a woman. She does not pursue refinement, nor a sense of ritual, nor the so-called independence and self-realization. For her, a warm life and ordinary and trivial daily life is the best life. As long as this was the case, Zhou Shuling never thought of developing any other emotional entanglement with Lu Chang'an. Even if there is an occasional ambiguous touch, it will be quickly forgotten. You are not a little girl. If your finger touches my palm, you will blush and your heart will beat all day long. Lu Chang'an likes gold very much. Looking into his heart from this phenomenon shows that he actually values resources. What resources are more abundant and rich than an entire continent? Zhu Huntang knew that Lu Chang'an was the star of oolong love after the idiot Emperor Ingguan. He also paid attention to Lu He. Now if you search the internet for information related to Lu He, it will basically be about the tomb of Marquis Haihun, with piles of gold. Zhu Huntang has already made a plan to take away the gold from Marquis Haihun in the provincial museum next door. This matter must be done secretly. Mom and Dad cannot know, otherwise she will be punished. But Zhu Huntang has to do it. Daddy's belongs to me, how can someone take it as their own and remain indifferent? Let's play cards first. Zhou Shuling shuffled around with a deck of cards, deciding whether to play or not. There were obviously 3 people playing, so why did she keep talking about Lu Chang'an? I feel that such a topic will affect Zhou Shuling's poker skills. Who can play well when she is flustered, nervous, or shy? Anyway, Xiaoling, you have to work hard and let him puff you up. Shang Guandandan said nothing more, and warned Zhu Huntang. By the way, Xiaotang, today's card game is very important, don't cheat. Wait, we have captured Antarctica, and then you can fight for the other 2.2 million square kilometers. Can I steal cards and look at other people's cards? Zhu Huntang became a little more concerned. Shang Guandandan's temporary addition of this rule was a bit unreasonable and might slightly affect Zhu Huntang's playing skills. Of course it won't work either, Zhou Shuling said. It doesn't matter, as long as you use the rules reasonably to create the secret gambling skill, it will be fine. Zhu Huntang said disapprovingly. The current rules of landlords cannot restrain Zhu Huntang. As the supreme king of the universe, he can create and create at will. Bending the rules. After saying that, Zhu Huntang glanced at Zhou Shuling and wondered whether to give Zhou Shuling some slack. Zhou Shuling herself was the top of the mountain and could not be won over, but if she could make Zhou Shuling take a neutral or friendly stance when fighting against the Qin faction, that would be enough. Will suffice. In some aspects, Zhou Shuling gave Zhu Huntang the impression that she was relatively smart. For example, Zhou Shuling also had the Queen's seal, but unlike Qin Yanan, she didn't hang it around her neck all day and dig it out from time to show off. At the same time, because Dan Dan likes Zhou Shuling very much, Dan Dan will help Zhou Shuling, who is not very good at playing cards, on the card court assigned to Antarctica. But the last time An Nuan was around, Dan Dan didn't care about Zhu Huntang's various superb skills. Card skills. First, I'm going to use the secret skill of gambling, take away the big and small kings first. Didn't you say you can't steal cards? I didn't steal it. I just took it openly, so it doesn't violate the rules. Then next time in the dream game, I'll let you be a bear sheep, and you won't have a single dong dong beast under your command. No, I want a billion dong dong beasts. Okay, I won't use any secret skills for the first time. Lu Chang'an was woken up by a shock. I drank some wine with a few people last night, and what lingered in my mind was the image of Zhu Huntang being suspicious of the slippers given to him by Yan Qingcheng, so he didn't really want to go home. There was no drunken sexual intercourse. Many people like to attribute the indulgence of their desires to alcohol. In fact, isn't it just their own thoughts? Unless Lu Chang'an was framed, it would be impossible for him to have sex after drinking. This is what all gentlemen do. The movement on the bed was still disturbing. He squinted his eyes and saw the lamb running in circles on the bed. It was running, and suddenly its forehooves came together to stop it. Then it screamed and fell stiffly, and even deliberately twitched a few times. For a moment it bounced in place like a spring, then stretched its limbs in the air and fell onto the bed like a woolen blanket. After a while, he stopped at Lu Chang'an's feet, hesitantly stretched out his head and smelled his feet, then pretended to be trembling all over from the smell, and fainted unbearably. "Zhu Huntang, you're not going to the amusement park today, why are you so crazy so early in the morning?" Lu Chang'an just wanted to throw the quilt away and watch it bounce back and forth between the floor and the ceiling. "Hey, how many shots did you make here last night?" Seeing that he had woken up, the lamb climbed up, jumped on his belly and stood, looking down at him. After hearing its words, Lu Chang'an reached out and grabbed it. The lamb struggled for a few times, but Lu Chang'an accurately threw it into a vase in the corner of the room. The body was stuck inside, leaving only one head exposed. The little sheep was stunned for a moment, then shouted angrily, "Old man, why are you so rough with your baby?" "That means you are not my baby." Lu Chang'an closed his eyes comfortably. Perhaps he was able to endure its torture for a long time because of the comfort he felt after every time he cleaned it up. "If the person named Cheng did this to you, would you throw her into the vase and get stuck?" Xiao Yang didn't believe Lu Chang'an's words at all. If it wasn't his treasure, then this world shouldn't exist at all. First, her surname is Yan, and second, she is not as naughty as you. While it was restrained by the vase and unable to move, Lu Chang'an threw a blanket over it to cover its head, got up and put on his pants and top. Even though it was still an infant, it was not young for human beings. The father wants to avoid it. The lamb tossed its head around, unable to get rid of the blanket, and then fell to the ground with the vase, rolling a few times. Only then did Lu Chang'an rescue it. The little sheep got up dizzily and used a headbutt move towards him. As a result, it was dizzy and had no accuracy at all, and hit the bed directly. "Ah!" The little sheep lay aggrievedly beside the bed, kicking the edge of the bed with forehooves and sobbing silently. He only felt that he happily woke him up this morning. It should have been a lovely morning for a loving father and daughter. The result is not like that at all. "I'm going to take Zhu Huntang out to play later." Without the little fairy sheep. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he went to wash up. The little sheep quickly got up and hurried back to the room. After all, it would take time to transform, put on clothes, adjust the appearance of hair, jewelry, etc. It's entirely possible that the bad old man didn't wait for her and left directly. He could definitely do it. Zhu Huntang changed his clothes and rushed to the door. He couldn't help but take a look at the design of his doll lamb crashing into the door. He praised the lamb doll and himself as being very cute. Then he hurried to find Lu Chang'an, but saw Zhongqing coming from. He walked out of the room. "Ching Ching." Zhu Huntang raised his fingers towards Zhongqing. "Good morning, third Miss." Zhongqing smiled slightly. Zhu Huntang would usually only call out Ching when she wanted to use Zhongqing to do something bad, or when she was rolled on the ground by Lu Chang'an and felt aggrieved and asked for help. "Sir, when a woman like this comes out of a man's room in the morning, does she eat breakfast by the way?" Zhu Huntang asked meaningfully. "No, I gave him a simple meal. He said he drank wine last night and wanted to eat something simple and light in the morning, so I asked the kitchen to make him some frogfish porridge, but I didn't drink it." Zhongqing was a little confused. He answered in confusion, feeling that Zhu Huntang had something to say, but he didn't understand it right away. "Then have you drank the porridge?" After Zhu Huntang finished speaking, he couldn't help but laugh. "This bleat is so nasty, such a filthy bleat." Only then did Zhongqing realize what Zhu Huntang said, and felt a little embarrassed and had to remind her, "Miss Third, before you came to Juncha, although you were generally the same as you are now, at least you never spoke in such vulgar ways. If so, how could you, How could you not be ashamed and still laugh proudly? Isn't it funny, Zhu Huntang didn't care, I learned it from your cousin. Zhongqing took a long breath. For the sake of family members, of course she liked Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang to play together, but objectively speaking, she had already discovered that Bai Hui and Zhu Huntang would degrade each other when they played together. The opponent's lower limit in all aspects. You can learn from her. After Zhongqing finished speaking, he felt that there was nothing Bai Hui could do for Zhu Huntang to learn from. Thinking about it carefully, there was still some. Yes, you see, Bai Hui is very lovable in front of Zhu Huntang. Lu Chang'an would never beat her, nor lift her up and throw her away, nor would he shave her hair off. Most people need to learn from others to become better, just because they are not yet at the top of the world, need to make progress, and need to work hard to improve. The supreme being of the universe like me can only be the object of learning for others, and if I learning from others will not only have no benefit or practical significance, but will also lose your own uniqueness, which is not worth the loss. After Zhu Huntang finished speaking, he nodded and affirmed himself, and then asked thoughtfully, you said, I follow this. Lu Chang'an asked, can he agree that I don't have to study anymore? It can range from turning a deaf ear to you, and at the most severe, beating you. As the first person to see Lu Chang'an wrap up Zhu Huntang and roll on the ground, Zhongqing was very sure of this. Zhu Huntang glanced at Lu Chang'an's room, and temporarily gave up trying to persuade Lu Chang'an with this point of view, and returned to the main point. Did any of you sleep with Lu Chang'an last night? Or slept together? No, Zhongqing raised his hand and touched his warm cheek. If they slept together last night, could they get up so early and leave his room? She will definitely be exhausted. Thinking about Lu Chang'an's physique and strength, you will know that this is the result. The third lady often said some obscene and vulgar words, but in the end she was slightly defeated by Zhongshu, who also had no actual combat experience but was much more mature. A bunch of trash, Zhu Huntang yelled. It turned out that he didn't feel anything at all. Once he was scolded by Zhu Huntang, Zhongqing woke up and felt ashamed. Surrounded by beauties, they drank wine and drank. Under the ambiguous light, everyone's eyes were gentle, charming, and sultry. But nothing happened around him, which seemed like a bit of a failure. Basically, it was the same level of shame as when she used to be drunk and threw herself into his arms, but was knocked unconscious by him instead. After judging in this way, the frustration and shame that Zhongqing suppressed in his heart was somewhat weakened. After all, everyone is such a failure. I was fighting for Antarctica last night, otherwise, if I participated in the planning, you wouldn't feast on this piece of dragon meat. Zhu Huntang was a little regretful, but also a little angry. The bamboo family seems to be very powerful, but except for Zhu Huntang, they are basically useless, making it difficult for Zhu Huntang to divide his time between fighting for Antarctica land in Dandan and thinking about helping them make plans to eat dragon meat. As long as they did not participate, in front of Lu Chang'an, they would perform tea tricks in front of Lu Chang'an without any actual results. Next time there is such an opportunity, you can use the drunkenness to blindfold him and play a little game like judging which moon belongs to whom by touch. Who can withstand this? Zhu Huntang had to show the sheep's head. A casual mention of the military advisor's strength would be a great idea for them. Zhongqing imagined himself begging for love with his third wife and Li Hongfang. He couldn't help but was dumbfounded, covered his face and left. It was really terrible. The third lady had simply turned into a Japanese eldest lady. Otherwise, who could come up with such a trick? Ha ha ha, I'm so obscene, even a mature woman feels ashamed and runs away. Zhu Huntang put his hands on his hips, laughed a few times, and Yang went to find Lu Chang'an proudly. Lu Chang'an finished his porridge and went downstairs with his little tail. Where are we going to rape and plunder today? Zhu Huntang jumped up and down beside Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an ignored her and just stood in front of the intersection and stretched, looking past the Huangxing statue and landing on the pedestrian street ahead. Plagues are stacked together like colorful building blocks, and there are all kinds of snacks and restaurants with various names, bringing together a sense of endless abundance and satisfaction. People always feel that they can be extremely satisfied with what they eat here. In fact, when most people look around, they will find that they are just the same variety and taste of snack streets across the country. Let's rob a bank today. Dandan wants to rob a bank, but she's afraid that she'll be caught, shot, and then burned in an unsightly crematorium. Let's show her how to rob a billion or 80 yuan. Dad took the initiative to take him out to play. Zhu Huntang excitedly felt that he should do whatever he wanted. Children are like this. They are afraid of everything when they are with their dad. Puff. A man and a woman passed by. The woman couldn't help but laugh when she heard Zhu Huntang speak. What's so funny? Lu Chang'an turned around and asked with a frown. Ah, of course it's funny. The woman was stunned for a moment. This man was as tall as a green pine on the cliff. He had a handsome face and fair skin. He had a thin waist and wide shoulders. At first glance, he looked like he had the same high-frequency movement ability as a male dog. Especially the kind of strength and displeasure shown when being disobeyed. People feel that this is the domineering temperament that girls like most, and it is definitely not something that the coquettish little fresh meat in idol dramas can interpret. Do you think it's difficult to rob a bank or rob a billion or $80 million? Lu Chang'an thought for a while and didn't bother to explain that it was only appropriate to sneer when faced with unfulfilled delusions and remarks. So he took Zhu Huntang's hand and turned around. Just as he was about to leave, the woman said again, "Hey. This is last year's show style. I remember it was the first theme launched by Meline after she became the brand's CDO. Oh my god, I didn't expect people in China to wear it. I looked through many places and didn't even see it. To someone who can feel better wearing it than you." The woman boasted with praise. Roll. Hey, what did you say? The man who was with the woman was already a little unhappy when the female companion showed her stunning look in front of other men. You get out too. Did you hear that? Get out of here. Zhu Huntang snapped his fingers. The two breadmen immediately sent the man and woman out of the square in front of the Bailong Center. The owner had no problem driving the unwanted passers-by away from his property. The smell of little bourgeois is really intoxicating. Lu Chang'an was quite satisfied with Zhu Huntang's handling, nodded, and continued to pull Zhu Huntang forward. Wait! Zhu Huntang suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Lu Chang'an stood aside. Since there was no class this morning, he was not in a hurry to do anything, let alone drag her to school. He planned to take Zhu Huntang to find exotic animals to play with. You didn't buy your clothes yourself, right? Zhu Huntang knows Lu Chang'an quite well. When buying clothes, he only requires comfort, cleanliness, and fit, and doesn't pay any attention to the brand. Yet, Qin Yinan should have bought it. Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang suspiciously. Is she thinking about something again? So Lu Chang'an refused to say another word. Sure enough, there is a problem. Zhu Huntang touched the non-existent beard on his chin. Lu Chang'an continued to move forward. Qin Yinan, like Professor Lu, is a woman who likes to buy some brand name clothes and bags. They will buy you the style of clothes to show that they care about you and are gentle and virtuous wives who know how to consider men. Lu Chang'an vaguely felt what Zhu Huntang was going to say, so he didn't want to talk to her. He didn't even want to refute her inexplicable dragging of Professor Lu. How could Professor Lu think of buying him clothes? Can't an Nuan cut the clothes into strips? Then the pair of handmade slippers you have at home have absolutely nothing to do with Professor Qin Yinan and Liu. Zhu Huntang ruled out these two. Originally, Dong Dong Mom was the most likely possibility, but yesterday when I took the slippers, Dong Dong Dong's mother had no reaction. Generally speaking, if it was Dong Dong's mother who made it, when I noticed the slippers, she would say something guiltily and nervously, "Ah, it's just a pair of ordinary slippers." I think she just missed one pair. I have nothing to do with slippers like this, so I can make them casually, and so on. It's none of your business. Lu Chang'an felt that Zhu Huntang was analyzing it like this, and sooner or later she would be peeling off all the details to find the correct answer. Lu Chang'an suddenly became rude, either out of anger or guilty. Zhu Huntang continued to analyze, it can't be Dan Dan. Dan Dan will only gesture around with a needle and thread. After arousing your idea, he will let you. I can feel motherly love through her eyes. If I give her 2 stitches in the solace of my shoes, she will say, I don't have the strength. It can't be my mother. My mother even has shoes given to her by others. How do you expect her to make a pair of handmade slippers? It's possible that she would chop off other people's legs and skin them to make shoe covers for you. Zhu Huntang ruled it out again. A suspect said, it's impossible for Zhong Cheng. She probably thinks that making such a pair of shoes will cause needles or calluses in her hands. The rough fingers will not be able to play an excellent supporting role when she and you are roaring in the mountains and forests. Lu Chang'an raised his hand and gave her a slap in the face. If he hadn't been on the street, he would have beaten her up. Whose daughter would talk about her father's private life? Still the kind that slanders you in every possible way. Ah, bad old man, if you have the guts, let me finish. I will fight you again later. Zhu Huntang was accumulating anger, because she was analyzing, and felt that she was getting close to the truth. It's impossible for Li Hongfang. She will only find a pair of embroidered shoes or something as a treasure in some tomb that's thousands of years old. By the way, I'm going to take Li Hongfang with me to the provincial museum next door. It's nothing. Zhu Juntang stopped in time. What do you want to do? Lu Chang'an felt that Zhu Huntang was 10,000 times more worrying than Zhou Dongdong. He was basically on the same level as Shang Guandandan. The most Zhou Dongdong would do was throw away the lighter and hold the firecrackers in his hand when setting off firecrackers. There is no need to worry about injuring your finger at such a level. Where is Zhu Huntang? Where is Shang Guandandan? These 2 people, plus Li Hongfang, who is lawless as soon as he has a backer, basically have the effect of being put on a class A wanted order at any time. I didn't do anything, that's not the point. Zhu Huntang coughed lightly. The only ones who can make small fresh gifts like handmade slippers are Bai Fen, and Nuan He, surnamed Cheng. Bai Fen belongs to the dark tea category. He does things secretly and wields a small hoe, but refuses to openly admit that he is a tea type. Directly making handmade slippers for you is equivalent to being a clear tea, and it is still at the level of Mingqi and Longjing. She won't do this. As for An Nuan, when we re-established Zhu Fenglai Jianmen last year, you were wearing the hanfu made by her. The workmanship was rough and not as fine as the slippers. When you go to An Nuan's house, the slippers she prepared for you, as well as her own co-branded shoes, all reflect her taste and aesthetic preferences, which determines that this pair of slippers cannot be given to you by her. After saying that, Zhu Huntang ran to Lu Chang'an and stared at Lu Chang'an with the same look as when Du Shiniang was angry when she sank the treasure box. She felt heart palpitations, dizziness, and staggered back. She almost turned into a lamb and fell to the ground and fainted. Wish you all an awesome new year. Asking for monthly passes, etc., all kinds of things. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1121. Zhu Huntang couldn't help but think of the time in the Phoenix dynasty, when the little fairy sheep and the big fairy sheep ran freely and carefree on the vast green prairie. When the little fairy sheep got tired of playing, the big fairy sheep held it in its arms, looked at it with great affection, and let it sleep sweetly. There was no Yan Qing Chen, no Lu Chanqian, no second, third, fourth or various gestational sacs, only the little fairy sheep and the big fairy sheep. It turned out that I had already left the dreamland, but I didn't wake up until this moment. Zhu Huntang steadied himself, stepped on Lu Chang'an angrily, turned around and ran towards Bailong Center. Today was not the right time to play at all. Yan Qingchen knows that Zhu Huntang is daddy's little cotton padded jacket, so she wants to be daddy's little slippers. The little cotton padded jacket was soft, cute, and warm. Yan Qingchen knew that she could not compete with Zhu Huntang in terms of cuteness, so she took a different approach and chose to be like a little slipper. Slippers, like cha-cha, fit you quietly, allowing you to unknowingly get used to the fit between you and them, and ultimately become unable to leave. The little cotton padded jacket is often taken off, and the time spent wearing slippers throughout the year is much greater than the time spent wearing the little cotton padded jacket. Especially for Lu Chang'an, he has many women who come to warm him and simmer him. Even if the little cotton padded jacket is warm and comfortable, he can take it off and only wear it occasionally. Slippers are different. Lu Chang'an wears slippers much longer than any other kind of shoes. Even Zhu Huntang is like this. The more pampered and comfortable his life is, the more time he spends wearing slippers every day. Today I must come up with a trick to defeat Yan Qingchen's little slippers. Lu Chang'an stood there, watching Zhu Huntang rush into Beilong Center. The bread man had already followed. Thinking about it, he was still a little worried, so he called Zhongqing and asked her to pay attention to Zhu Huntang's movements. If anything was wrong, just inform him. If it's just rolling on the ground, that's fine. His plan remained unchanged, he still wanted to see those strange beasts. Just like an experienced hunter, even if he has no hunting plans in the short term, he will still pay attention to the movements of various prey in the mountains and forests and the various traces left behind. Because it was not a very purposeful action, Lu Chang'an originally planned to take Zhu Huntang with him to increase her knowledge, but now he still does not plan to go alone. Back under the sycamore tree, Zhou Dongdong had already gone to school, leaving Shang Guan alone sitting there. She moved a table and placed it under the tree. There was a large oak barrel placed on the table. Li Hongfang had helped her pack the wine inside, and wine bottles were also placed on the table. Shang Guan Dandan herself slumped on the recliner with a thermos flask in her arms, singing a song that imitated the chirping of birds. She looked at her bottles and buckets with great satisfaction, as if she was sitting on a billionaire's fortune. As soon as he saw Lu Chang'an coming back, Shang Guan Dandan sat up straighter with a little vigilance, but thinking that he probably had no interest in robbing her of anything and had nothing to frame her with, he relaxed and leaned back. The shoes that were only hanging on her toes fell off. Shang Guan Dandan hooked her toes, glanced at her shoes again, and tilted her head to signal for him to pick them up and put them on for her. "Have you eaten?" Lu Chang'an greeted casually. This is how ordinary people greet each other. Through the details of ordinary people's daily lives, Shang Guan Dandan gradually realizes that she is just an ordinary person, breaking away from the ideological shackles of the feudal ruling class and integrating into the lives of the people from the depths of her soul. Although Shang Guan Dandan usually hangs out with the old men and women in the community and does some down-to-earth things, in fact it is just a superficial phenomenon. Would a real ordinary person consider robbing a bank? Lu Chang'an knew very well that Zhu Huntang had been instigated by Shang Guan Dandan when he proposed to rob the bank for 1 billion or 80 billion. Eat. But if you still want to take me to have breakfast, I can still eat a little. Shang Guan Dandan continued to lie there and curled his toes, indicating that the temperature in the morning was relatively low and the Queen Mother's little feet were cold. He could either put shoes on for her or hold her little feet in his arms to keep them warm. All filial moths do this. I ate it too. Why did you take all this wine out? Do you want to dry it? Lu Chang'an asked. Shang Guan Dandan could even take out the coffin to dry it. I put it here so that when Xiao Qian, Xiao Qin, Xiao Xie and others see it, they will be curious. I took the opportunity to tell them that these wines can improve health and defraud them of their money, no, make their money. The Queen Mother couldn't afford to go early, so she spent so much effort moving around early in the morning, of course it was for business. Can you defraud them of their money? Lu Chang'an didn't believe in her strength. You should know that Lu Chang'an usually had to fool old men and old ladies for 10 or 8 yuan, but for more than that, he could only use the card game to rob her. I have participated in many health and wellness courses. I have learned from one example and used some secrets from the royal family's practical application to convince them. I will definitely be able to sell 1 or 2 bottles. Shang Guandandan said confidently that she would not sell them all, but would keep most of them for herself to drink. Lu Chang'an nodded. It was good that Shang Guandandan did not embark on the path of telecommunications fraud, but instead embarked on illegal marketing activities targeting the elderly's health care. It would be easier to be arrested by the public security organs. However, Li Hongfang probably didn't tell Shang Guandandan how much the barreled wine he bought for her would cost. According to Lu Chang'an's perspective, even in the 1990s, oak barrels of this level would cost tens of thousands of yuan, not to mention the wine inside. If Shang Guandandan is really arrested, Lu Chang'an will go to the Public Security Bureau to show the true value of the wine. On the one hand, he can redeem Shang Guandandan, and on the other hand, he can make Shang Guandandan realize that she is a stupid queen mother. Will do loss-making business and be deeply affected. I have something to do to find the strange beasts. Do you want to go and have a look? Lu Chang'an said. Business. My shoes are off. Shang Guandandan kicked his feet, supported his cheek with the back of his hand, and spoke vaguely. Lu Chang'an bent down, picked up her shoes, held her little feet that were not even long enough and stuffed them into the shoes. He. Shang Guandandan felt a little itchy. Although he didn't warm his mother's feet like a truly filial moth, this was still a bit of progress. So Shang Guandandan stood on the recliner, shook his hands back and forth a few times, jumped down with all his strength, and walked a few steps with a majestic expression to express his satisfaction because of the moth's filial piety. Lu Chang'an took Shang Guandandan out of the community, and at the same time defeated Shang Guandandan's conspiracy to defraud the old man and woman in the same community, safeguarding social harmony and stability. Because Lu Chang'an didn't want to carry her on his back, and Shang Guandandan was unlikely to walk more than the distance to the vegetable market, the two of them went out riding electric bicycles. Don't use electricity. We're not going far away. Can't you just kick and kick? Shang Guandandan was a queen mother who lived her life wisely. Of course, she must condemn his wasteful behavior at this time. Charging costs money, but Lu Chang'an's strength is endless and it doesn't cost money, so what should he do? Then why don't you fly in front and drag me away? Lu Chang'an is not crazy, so it is naturally impossible for him to be like this. What's more, charging costs money. He doesn't waste his shoes just by pedaling like this. You should know that when he went on long journeys, he always took off his shoes and hurried on. I'm not gray. Don't imitate Zhou Dongdong's speech. I am learning from Xiao Tang. Xiao Tang, like me, has the ability to survive by relying on cuteness. Shang Guandandan also taught Zhu Huntang some dialects, such as Ci Ma Er Leng, Pu11 Lai Hai, Melon Rind, and so on. Lu Chang'an smiled, you two are so cute. Shang Guandandan didn't pay attention to Lu Chang'an's sneer. He leaned into Lu Chang'an's arms, his cheek pressed against his arm, and he tilted his head to look at the scenery along the road. He tapped the ground with one foot from time to time, which could save a little bit of electricity. This is the truth that if you don't accumulate steps, you won't reach 1,000 miles, and if you don't accumulate small streams, you won't reach a river. The Queen Mother always silently educates moths through her own personal demonstrations. If not, how come she had so much gold to give him back then, and now she is still trying hard to save money for him by cheating money? No, by doing business, part-time jobs, working at sea, etc. to save his wife's capital. Slightly short, it looks grown up. I wish you all a great new year. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1122. Stores such as women's health clubs usually open at noon. After the sleepy time at noon, the technicians trim their appearance, freshen their breath, dress up seductively, and officially receive customers when they are energetic. It's just that this store is not an ordinary health club. The technicians inside are also particularly energetic. They just follow the crowd and close the door in the morning. Banging on the door will at most frighten them, but it will not really affect their rest. So Lu Chang'an banged on the door. Since it didn't affect anyone else, it wasn't considered low quality. Shang Guandandan stood beside him, kicking the door in step with his rhythm. Who? A rough promise came from the store, and the sound of slippered footsteps approached. The inner door was opened, and the rolling shutter was pulled up, revealing the tall and straight Zhu Ni. Seeing Lu Chang'an and Shang Guandandan standing at the door, Zhu Ni felt his legs trembling. Lu Chang'an was so frightened that he made people urinate while running away. Coupled with the double oppression of this mysterious little girl, Zhu Yan only felt that the terror caused by meteorites falling from the sky in ancient times was nothing more than that. The gods, no, are we, the alien beasts, going to be exterminated again today? Thinking that he was often said to have bad breath, Zhu Yan quickly took out the mouth freshener from his pocket and sprayed it into his mouth a few times. Then he asked with an apologetic smile, you two have come to visit me. What do you want to do for me? He controlled all the muscles in his body to prevent himself from falling down. In fact, I have seen the little girl next to Lu Chang'an from a distance before, but from a far distance, I can feel the intimidating feeling like the earth is falling apart, so as long as they feel that she is nearby, Zhu Ni and other strange beasts will consciously stay away. Point. Last time, Hu Gao described the feeling of being in close contact with her, and was teased by Zhu Yan. He felt that although it was scary, if he really came into close contact, he wouldn't feel like he would be crushed to death at any time. Now Zhu Nang has felt what it feels like to be like a trembling little ant, raising the soles of his feet in front of an elephant. Restrain yourself. Lu Chang'an did not respond to Zhu Yan, but turned his head and said to Shang Guandandan. When Shang Guandandan is awake, she will control herself not to suck up all these strange beasts, but she will still exude the instinctive pressure of a super high-level creature, even Su Mei can't bear it. What's in front of her? This is especially true for Zhu Nu. Ah! Shang Guandandan shouted a few times with her mouth open, then she held her thermos bottle and swayed on tiptoes to the left and right, bulging her cheeks and bouncing a few times. What are you doing? Lu Chang'an frowned, unable to understand her inexplicable behavior. Because it makes me look cute. Am I asking you to do this? Don't you mean he's afraid of me? Then I'll pretend to be cute so that he won't be so afraid of me. Shang Guandandan felt confident and a little angry, as moths couldn't always connect with her. Lu Chang'an looked at her intently, and then said to Zhu Yan, are you feeling better? Okay, better, Zhu Yan said as he wiped the sweat from his forehead. Now that he was feeling better, Lu Chang'an pulled Shang Guandandan into the store. Zhu Yan stretched out his head and looked around the street, then put up the closed sign. Shang Guandandan looked around and found that the door was a cashier similar to that in a rice noodle shop, so he walked over and stood behind the cashier to observe. Where is our boss? Lu Chang'an asked. At this time, Xiao Kaiming came down from upstairs. A group of strange beasts dressed as male technicians were looking in the corridor with panic on their faces. Seeing that Zhu Nu was safe and sound, they seemed to breathe a sigh of relief. Mr. Lu is here, what are you doing for me? Xiao Kaiming looked away from Shang Guandandan and greeted Lu Chang'an as usual. He also heard from Hu Ji about Shang Guandandan sucking human bones, and he could also feel the oppressive pressure on Shang Guandandan that made people lie on the ground, but he was the boss after all, so it was impossible. Like Zhu Niao, his legs are shaking like chaff, which is embarrassing. As early as ancient times, Xiao Kaiming was one of the giants among the gods. When the meteorite destroyed the world, the island cave where the gods were dormant contained surging blood essence. Xiao Kaiming was also one of the gods who absorbed the most blood energy. The strength of the god clan is supreme. If this were not the case, he would not be able to hold on to his position as the leader of the Junxia god clan. I'm asking you about someone, Dongwang Huang, Lu Chang'an said straight to the point. Xiao Kaiming couldn't help but glance at Shang Guandandan, who was turning on the cashier system, and lowered his voice and asked expectantly, "Is Mr. Lu going to catch Dongwang Huang and eat him? She is a great supplement. You think she is a chicken, and you just kill her and eat her." Lu Chang'an frowned slightly. Are these strange beasts so disunited? Li Hongfang's analysis was rare. These strange beasts are also different from each other. Dong Guanghuang and Xiao Kaiming are definitely not on the same side. There may even be some grudge. Otherwise, if they are both strange beasts and survive in modern times, it would be fine if they don't join forces to keep warm. Actually expecting the other person to be caught and eaten? A little cruel, a little too much. She calls herself Phoenix, which is so shameless. I think she is most likely a creature similar to a chicken. After absorbing the blood in the island's cave, she has made herself famous. Xiao Kaiming sneered. Oh? Why do you say that? There is no conclusive evidence. But first of all, she can't be a phoenix, right? In ancient times, there were many flying gods who liked to be associated with phoenixes. Dong Guanghuang was not the first, nor the last. Wan Xiao Kaiming shook his head. If she is a phoenix, we will kowtow to her. When you meet a phoenix, do you kowtow? Lu Chang'an glanced at Shang Guandandan, who had turned on the cashier system and was pressing the keyboard randomly. The phoenix is here, but I haven't seen you worship me yet. Could it be that only Lu Chang'an thought she was a phoenix, but in the eyes of these strange beasts who were actually closely related to the phoenix, Shang Guandandan was not? Thinking about it carefully, although Lu Chang'an found a lot of evidence, Shang Guandandan never admitted it, nor did he actually turn into a little firebird to show him. Dongwang Huang did say that when you were at your peak, she had not yet awakened. Lu Chang'an did not mean to reveal Shang Guandandan's identity, and continued, is it possible that she has been sleeping in that island cave, even if you later she didn't move much when entering the island cave, and it wasn't until the cave opened that she was born with you? She didn't tell us this, she just kept showing her abilities and asking us to follow her. Xiao Kaiming said with some surprise, if she was a native life form in the island cave, then, it is really possible for her to have a relationship with Phoenix. Relation. After saying that, Xiao Kaiming had a look of anxiety on his face. He was wary of Dong Wanghuang's attitude but not convinced. It was obviously because although Dong Wanghuang's previously shown abilities were powerful, they were not enough to truly overwhelm Xiao Kaiming. If she really had a relationship with Phoenix, even if it was just some kind of clone of Phoenix's life, it would be beyond Xiao Kaiming's ability to deal with. I'm just guessing, but you know too little about your opponent. Lu Chang'an found that he didn't gain much from looking for Xiao Kaiming. Since she is an opponent, how can she let me know more? You see, she has never revealed anything to you. Which means that she wants to use you or cooperate. And for us, she has no good intentions. Xiao Kaiming sneered. It seems that I still have to talk to her face to face. Lu Chang'an thought for a while, should he take An Nuan with him? And Nuan is already wary of Dong Wanghuang. If he bumps into Dong Wanghuang when he is looking for him, why should he pour all of this 19-year-old vinegar into his mouth? Speaking of aged vinegar, many of the 40 and 50-year-old vinegars in China are mostly gimmicks and are not genuine vintages at all. A good brand is managed like a salesman selling melatonin. It is obvious that those aged 20 or 30 years are gimmicks. The mature vinegar already has very good health-preserving effects, but imported low-quality black vinegar cannot be sold. Go buy some good vinegar to drink. With this thought, Lu Chang'an stood up, greeted Shang Guandandan and was about to leave. I accidentally scanned the QR code with your machine and paid 1,000 yuan, can you pay it back to me? Shang Guandandan raised his head and looked at Xiao Kaiming expectantly. Xiao Kaiming was stunned for a moment, and quickly took out 1,000 yuan in cash from the counter and handed it to Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan spit some saliva on his fingers, then began to count the money, counting it 3 times before putting it away. Lu Chang'an pulled her out of the women's health club, took her mobile phone over, looked at it to pay the bill, and it was true. He originally thought she had defrauded these poor beasts out of $1,000, that was just flesh and blood money. Haha, a bunch of stupid guys. Shang Guandandan was a little angry. What's wrong? I gave them a chance and they didn't take it seriously. What chance did you give them? Shang Guandandans didn't take it seriously. The correct understanding is that the other party didn't notice it. If he was stupid, if he didn't see the opportunity she gave him, wouldn't Lu Chang'an be stupid too? Because he didn't see it either. I deliberately paid them 1,000 yuan and asked them to pay back the money. If smart wives like Fang Fang, Xiao Zhongqing, and Yaya, they would definitely say, Dandan, you remembered it wrong. What you paid was 1,000 yuan, 10,000 yuan, I will give it to you right now. Shang Guandandan shook his head. I think they are pitiful, so I deliberately gave them the opportunity to please me, so that after they see me collecting money, they will naturally feel more at ease and not be afraid. I'm shivering. How can you eat someone after receiving money, right? Then you still have good intentions. Seeing that she had no success in her fraud, Lu Chang'an didn't say anything more and took the kind-hearted Shang Guandandan home on his electric motorcycle. Arriving under the plane tree, Lu Chang'an saw a lamb jumping around with a plastic bag in its mouth. The plastic bag in its mouth seemed to contain something, and the body had finally recovered. The beautiful wool that had just grown was cut into pieces, and it was extremely ugly. Hello everyone, it's the annual new book season again, and the truly original work of First Love is as bright as summer flowers. The Princess Jianghu has been released. The original name of this book is The Prince's Stick Technique. His father sent him to learn martial arts, and they promised to come down after learning and go catch heroines in the arena together. Who knew that his father passed away suddenly, so Qin Shaoan had to come down early to inherit this enchanting arena. All kinds of requests. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1123. Lu Chang'an was sitting next to the electric heating table, Shang Guandandan was drinking water, and the little sheep was jumping on the table. In the center of the table was a pair of woolen underpants. The little sheep was so proud of the sheep that it walked around like a stranger, arrogantly walking around the woolen underwear. Sometimes it nudged Lu Chang'an with the horns on its head, and sometimes it raised its hooves and tried to climb up to stand on his shoulders. Unable to stand still, he jumped down again and continued to circle around the wool underwear, as if the world was focused on it. What are these? Lu Chang'an mentioned the wool underwear. Those wool had a very familiar feel and smell. I originally wanted to collect all the wool and make a small cotton padded jacket for you, but there was really not enough, so I had to make wool underwear. The lamb kicked the underwear with its little hooves and showed off proudly. Lu Chang'an raised his hand and touched the lamb's back. It no longer felt soft and warm. The wool was too short and his body was a little cold. He was wearing a diaper behind his buttocks. His hairless limbs looked thin and small, slightly arrogant. With his head tilted, his big dark eyes were full of pride, like a baby who had just learned to poop on his own and was being praised by his father. Why do you do this? Lu Chang'an pressed the wool underwear again. This thing was even more extreme than the mink underwear with warm straps. Just pressing it, my palms feel warm and warm. Because I am Daddy's most treasured beam, so of course Daddy is also Beam's treasure, and I must be filial to you. The little sheep opened his mouth, picked up the woolen underwear, and threw it a little in front of him. Lu Chang'an pressed the corners of his mouth, frowned, and looked serious. This cunning, scheming little baby was pooing him again. He couldn't be so happy by its little trick that he could forget about its countless transformation operations that made his heart burst and make him angry. Shang Guandandan put down the thermos bottle and came to break off Lu Chang'an's hand. He wanted to see his expression, but Lu Chang'an refused to let him go. Seeing that she was annoying, he simply lifted her up and put her on the other side of the sofa. "Who cut the wool for you? It was really ugly." It looked like an electric clipper and a pair of scissors. It was rare for his skills to be so poor. Lu Chang'an found a place where he felt uncomfortable, and showed with a sullen face that he was not smiling. Generally, people who are in a good mood will not be picky and find fault with others. I hope Shang Guandandan and Zhu Huntang have such common sense and know this. "Zhongqing," she said, "you cut it like this last time." Xiao Yang turned around and looked around. She also wanted to help me cut a heart shape on my butt. I suspect she was taking the opportunity to vent her feelings as a subordinate. I had a rebellious mentality, so I kicked her with my little hoof, and she gave up. How many of your subordinates don't want to take the opportunity to retaliate against you? Lu Chang'an picked up the wool underwear and looked at it. It's very rough, incomparable to Yan Qingqing's exquisite and meticulous handiwork. It didn't use wool and yarn to make a pair of wool underwear. Instead, it used a pair of men's underwear and carefully glued the wool inside and out. It is conceivable that it is such a wild and casual style. The ones Lu Chang'an wore in primitive tribes tens of thousands of years ago were of better workmanship than these. But after all, it was his first gift made by himself, and it was made of his own wool. Due to his personal qualities and cultivation, Lu Chang'an naturally couldn't express his disdain and was reluctantly willing to accept it. "Wear it for us to see." Like an underwear model walking on a catwalk, the little sheep pressed the back of his hand with its little hooves and said expectantly. Shang Guandandan found a video of a male underwear model catwalking on the TV. "Look, that's it." Mature women all like to watch such programs, but Shang Guandandan is just a little girl who hasn't grown up yet, so she doesn't like it. She just gives an example to the moth, and compared with the moth, these models look like chickens. "I want to call Mom, Zhongqing, Hui, and Li Hongfang to come and watch." The little sheep was so excited that he banged the electric heating table with his two hooves. Shang Guandandan quickly put the mat under the lamb's hooves to prevent it from damaging the electric heating table. Although the electric heating table is placed upstairs, it is already Shang Guandandan's favorite thing, so he must cherish it. "You can also call Xiaoling, Yaya and others to come. Your skin is itchy, right?" Lu Chang'an imagined the scene of himself walking on the catwalk and being watched by this group of people below. Even with his skin's ability to withstand stress, it was a bit unbearable. Except for Shang Guandandan and Zhu Huntang, this group of people would be quite interesting if they were on the underwear catwalk, but he couldn't be too casual now. After all, he had to set an example for the lamb, lest it follow suit. "Wear it. Wear it. Wear it." The lamb fell on the electric heating table, kicked his chest with his limbs and hooves, raised his head and howled. "No, you want to play something else?" Lu Chang'an refused casually. "Let's go to the bank and have a look." Shang Guandandan seemed to just suggest it in passing, and didn't look very serious, so as not to make people think too much. Lu Chang'an stared at her, and Shang Guandandan's bright pupils moved away little by little, leaving only the whites of her eyes to meet his look. He looked like he had seen through what Shang Guandandan was planning to do. He was really self-righteous. Could he go to the bank and have a look? Does it mean that the Queen Mother wants to take away an ATM machine? She didn't think so at all, because the Queen Mother had never even used an ATM, so how could she be interested in such a thing? Then you become the great immortal sheep and I will play with it." The little sheep stepped on his chest and came up with a fun idea. Anyway, he had already transformed into the great immortal sheep and played with it. Just like after a woman loses her first boyfriend, her relationship with her second boyfriend becomes much more casual. The same is true for men. After he blooms, it is easy for him to bloom again and shine as brightly as a summer flower. Lu Chang'an folded his hands on his chest and stared at the lamb expressionlessly. He was very annoyed when he saw the lamb raising his head from time to time and howling "Choo choo Wang, okay." The lamb jumped up quickly, jumped off the electric heating table, and ran around the living room. Anyone who has raised a dog at home knows that small animals with weak brains are often inexplicably excited and run around everywhere. Lu Chang'an returned to the room with the wool underwear, looked at it carefully, shook his head with a smile, put it in a plastic bag and put it in the closet. It's impossible to wear this. It's like the custom in some places to collect the hair cut off from the child's first shave as a souvenir. Lu Chang'an turned into a sheep and walked out of the bedroom. The little sheep jumped up and landed on its back. Hey, Dandan, let's remove the thickening pills together. Yeah. I have to follow you to take care of you. Otherwise, what if someone captures you and makes you into a hot pot? In fact, Shangguan Dandan wanted to lead them with a rope, but I guess only the little sheep would be willing, and the big sheep might be able to. It would be bad to hit the queen mother with a big horn and make her fly up. A man went out with 2 sheep. Shangguan Dandan looked around as usual, observing the various business opportunities that were fleeting in modern society. The big fairy sheep paced calmly, more like some mysterious creature that ruled the world, and only the little fairy sheep were jumping around. Followed by godmother and father, the world has been trampled under its feet. He is even more invincible than when his mother and father are around. After all, the strength gap between mother and godmother is a bit big. So the little sheep hit the street lamp with its horns, jumped in and out of the green belt, kicked the cars on the side of the road, and stepped on the floor tiles until it reached the Bailong Center. The feeling of invincibility in its heart made it invincible. Hesitantly, he crashed into the Bailong Center. The 452-meter-high Bailong Center naturally did not collapse, but it broke the floor-to-ceiling windows facing the street, and the huge glass fell down. It was so frightened that it hurriedly shouted "Daddy" and fled back. The great immortal sheep had already jumped over, protecting it under its body and letting the hard and sharp glass hit its back. Shangguan Dandan watched the scene of fatherly love overflowing indifferently. She was not worried about the safety of the father and daughter. Not to mention just breaking the glass, even if the 2 skyscrapers in Bailong Center were smashed together, it would not be a big deal. "Dad, I just wanted to rub it, but I couldn't control my strength." The little sheep crawled out from under his father. After rolling his eyes, he thought of a reason to deal with his father's scolding. "The weather is nice today, I don't want to be angry with you," the great immortal sheep said coldly. "If it is cloudy, you will be beaten." Yeah. The little sheep felt that he was safe, and regained his invincible mentality. He raised his head and licked the chest, neck, and cheek of the big fairy sheep. "Lick me too." The big fairy sheep's face was covered with his own saliva, and the little sheep acted coquettishly. The big fairy sheep lowered its head and covered its head and face with saliva. "Dad, when will the countries and governments on this earth ask me to be the leader of the earth?" The lamb was drooling, feeling that he already owned the whole world, so it was natural for him to serve as the leader of the earth. "If you become the leader of the earth, we can carve up the remaining continents," Shangguan Dandan said with great anticipation. "Can you guys stop talking like lunatics all day long?" The great immortal sheep couldn't stand these 2 people who were the most incompetent. The people from the property management office had been attracted by the sound of broken glass on the exterior wall. Fortunately, there was a bread man to deal with it, and Shangguan Dandan took the 2 sheep for a stroll elsewhere. The great fairy sheep didn't care where he was going. He focused his attention on the overly lively little sheep. He always felt that if he didn't stare at the little sheep for a second, the little sheep would jump to the street and be hit by a car, or it would be a little weird for ordinary people. An unexpected surprise. When Xiao Yang and Shangguan Dandan stopped together and stared at others operating the ATM, Daxianyang realized that he was being led into the bank. There are not many opportunities to ask for monthly votes, so I am asking everyone for monthly votes. I'm really immortal. Author, Julian Kuiken Rusiahwa. Chapter 1125. The middle-aged woman who was withdrawing money was doing the operation. She felt that someone was watching, and she felt a little strange and wary. When he turned his head, he found a little girl staring at him. Her eyes were wide open and she looked sweet and cute, like a small cake that had just been baked. There was also a little dwarf sheep next to it. It was trying to stand on tiptoes, resting its two front hooves on the cabinet, and stretched its neck to look around. The middle-aged woman couldn't help but smile, and immediately stopped being vigilant and continued to withdraw money on her own. When he saw the middle-aged woman withdrawing the money and leaving, Shang Guandandan showed a satisfied expression and folded his hands in his sleeves, as if an ignorant little old lady had watched someone else perform some magical operation. She doesn't have much money either. She only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 digits in her account. There was no one around, so the little sheep opened its mouth to speak. It just stretched its neck and was counting a few digits. It is a college student, and it is definitely not a primary school student who thinks that numbers over 50 should not appear in study and life. I can't rob ordinary people, Shang Guandandan thought for a moment, then fumbled around at the ATM. Normally I just observe outside, but today I came in person and naturally wanted to take a closer look. Shang Guandandan pressed every button on the ATM again. Let's rob a bank, steal their 18 billion, become a world-famous thief, and then launch a war after being wanted, and take the opportunity to conquer the world, Xiao Yang planned with a far-sighted vision. You still want to be wanted before you find out about the war? Hasn't the whole world already been trampled under your feet? What everyone is accustomed to is to occupy the TV station and announce that it has entered a state of war, and then you take over various government agencies and so on. Yes, the big sheep also came in, stretched out its hooves and pulled the little sheep, so that it could no longer lift its little hooves and lie on the ATM. The little sheep tilted its head left and right, thinking about the feasibility, and then the big sheep bit the back of its neck and took it out of the bank. The security guard who just walked over saw that the two sheep had gone out, so he reminded Shang Guandandan, "Little girl, if you need to come with your parents to handle business, you can't bring pets in." "I just want to grab some money, do I want to come with my parents?" Shang Guandandan frowned and pointed at the two sheep. "They are not my pets. The younger one is my goddaughter, and the older one is I'm a moth." The security guard was stunned. What should I do? She said she was going to rob a bank. Should she follow the relevant plan? At least call the police or something. But it seems that I can subdue this robber, but if I subdue her, I probably won't even get a bonus. You go home and play. The security guard thought for a while and came up with the correct answer. Shang Guandandan ignored the security guard and walked around the bank again, observing how the counter handled business, and then was asked out by the lobby manager. Shang Guandandan stretched out his arms, clapped his hands and walked to the door of the bank. He saw that the big sheep was still holding the little lamb in its mouth. The little lamb was struggling wildly, but because there were people coming and going around, he didn't curse and just kept bleating. Yelling, it attracted more people to watch. After all, small sheep are incomparably cute, and big sheep are even more shocking. They seem to be able to subvert everyone's inherent impression of sheep. How can a sheep look so majestic, like a mythical beast coming to the world? There was actually a group of extremely tall beauties in the crowd, each wearing sneakers, and their height was basically over 1.8 meters, and they were slowly surrounding them. The lamb fell from the big sheep's mouth, because this team of extremely tall beauties turned out to be the women's volleyball team of Xiongda Business School, and An Nuan and Dong Wang Huang were among them. "I think I've seen this lamb before." An Nuan looked at the lamb with its hair cut to pieces and recalled with some excitement that she had seen it in Bai Fen's space. When Bai Hui was playing at Nanshan Ranch, he posted a photo of him playing on the grass with this lamb. The lamb was very lively and liked to hunch over by Huey's body. Where have you seen it? Super cute. Look at its eyes, it looks like it can talk. It's so exciting. I like big sheep. I wonder if I can ride such a big sheep, a girl said eagerly. Go and try it, and Nuan encouraged with a smile. Lu Chang'an has a sheepish face and encourages others to ride on your boyfriend. Unlike other girls who were excited when they saw cute things, Dong Wang Huang just raised the corners of her mouth slightly, squatted down, her eyes fell on the big sheep, and observed with interest. Lu Chang'an has already recognized it. This is Dong Wang Huang. According to An Nuan's description, it is unlikely that there will be a second woman with such a domineering figure in the volleyball team. There are only 2 of them in the entire Xiongnan University, Dong Wang Huang in front of me, and Qin Yanan, who is pretending to be pregnant on Lushan Mountain. Even Professor Lu, who has excellent appearance, is still a little less coquettish in terms of domineering. Little lamb, let me touch its head, and Nuan stroked the lamb lovingly. Its hair had been cut into a mess. I don't know who did it. If it was the owner, it would be a waste of its cuteness. The lamb jumped up and down, squirming in An Nuan's arms. It still felt more comfortable than the one named Cheng. The one named Cheng liked to use hard bras to create a false temptation. Every time he was pushed up by the lamb, he felt, there will be some insufficient feedback. Although An Nuan is not as good as the generals of the bamboo family, at least he is genuine. He neither deceives the bad old man Lu Chang'an nor deceives the baby Long Zhuntang. This is what Tong Suwu Buletin is talking about. Hey, the little sheep hummed happily. Who doesn't like the embrace of a beautiful girl? It seems to like me very much, An Nuan said in surprise. If Bai Hui knew that the lamb she had fun playing with had already fallen into An Nuan's arms, would she feel NTR? It was difficult to determine whether it was the same one. An Nuan took out her mobile phone and prepared to take a photo to show Bai Hui to make sure. At this time, the little sheep was keenly aware that there was a big Nina with richer products next to him. His eyes lit up, and he got into the arms of Dong Wang Huang. It was almost the same as when he was sleeping with Qin Yanan in his arms. The little sheep quickly turned around and loudly bleated at Lu Chang'an, meowing, asking him to come and hump together. Huh, and Nuan frowned in confusion. Dong Wang Huang didn't do anything. She didn't even look at the little sheep. She was obviously more interested in the big sheep. Why did the little sheep suddenly rebel? It was me who felt NTR's feelings. Little lamb, what are you doing? Dong Wang Huang smiled softly. This lamb exuded a very attractive aura, pure blood, but a bit muddy. It must have been in the early childhood period when he was just born, and he didn't feel much of the high-level oppression inherent in Dong Guanghuang. The big sheep is naturally extraordinary, and its aura is very similar to that of the little sheep, but it seems to have learned to restrain itself and stood quietly beside it. Just now I felt it was peaceful, but the big sheep suddenly got into An Nuan's arms, swaying back and forth like the little sheep. It was a bit surprising. The big sheep had been paying attention to him just now, and Dong Wang Huang wanted to take both sheep into his arms and play with them. Da Yang, you are so good, and Nuan felt as if she had been healed. The little sheep rebelled, but the big sheep fell into her arms. After all, within the team, she and Dong Wang Huang actually had a vague sense of competition. Just now the little sheep ran into someone else's arms, and she was more or less embarrassed. Aren't these 2 sheep so lustful? Specially pick beautiful women. It's better to choose a beautiful woman with a good figure. The girls on the volleyball team laughed and discussed again. There is no doubt that An Nuan and Dong Wang Huang are the most beautiful girls in the volleyball team. An Nuan originally increased the popularity of the team. Now the team manager in charge of Weibo operations, every day they all have to post their photos to attract traffic. This is my sheep. Those of you who took pictures just now must pay me. Everyone was taking turns taking photos with the 2 sheep. Shang Guandandan, who had been observing for a long time at the bank entrance not far away, came over and held the payment code in his hand in front of them. Ah! Everyone was surprised. Someone was herding two cute sheep and then cheating people out of money like this? Although it is common to collect money for taking photos like this, the little girl's skillful posture and the tone of her speech are full of routines, which makes people think that she is already familiar with this kind of thing, and she has deceived many people in this way. This is the photo assassin, those people on the street who wear Journey to the West props and costumes, or dress up as copper figures. At least everyone will know at a glance that they are taking photos for a fee. You are throwing two sheep here, forget it, people are not popular. In ancient times, the streets were full of routines. The most important thing is that this little girl is so beautiful that it is impossible to care about her. Looking at her clear and shining eyes, it seems that if you scan the code and pay for her, her whole body will light up. The feeling is hard to refuse. Okay, how much? 10 yuan per person. After paying, you can continue to take photos. There is no limit to the number of times, but be careful to queue up and don't scare the little sheep and big sheep. They are my goddaughter and moth. Haha, it turns out they are your goddaughter and moth, they are so cute. The girls scanned the code and paid willingly. And Nuan also paid. After everyone had almost scanned the code, he greeted Shang Guandandan, Dandan. He waved his hand gently and skillfully. Nuan is so smart. Shang Guandandan raised his hand. And Nuan was too tall, so he had to bend down slightly to touch her head. Shang Guandandan knew very well that Nuan waited until everyone had scanned the QR code before greeting her. This was to make it easier for Shang Guandandan to collect money, so that no one would come to Nuan and say, "Oh, I turned out to be an acquaintance of yours. Don't be like this, make it cheaper," and so on. With this clever mind, she seems to be much smarter than when she first came to Lu Chang'an's house to spend the night. Shang Guandandan continued to hold up the payment sign, and there was still a little bird that looked very healthy but also delicious that he had not paid for. "Aren't you going to pay?" Shang Guandandan raised his head slightly, squinted his eyes, and pursed his lips into a line. "If you don't pay, you will be eaten." You can read chapter 25 of my new book The Princess Jianghu to know where the story of I'm Really Immortal continues. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1126. The middle-aged woman who was withdrawing money was doing the operation. She felt that someone was watching, and she felt a little strange and wary. When he turned his head, he found a little girl staring at him. Her eyes were wide open and she looked sweet and cute, like a small cake that had just been baked. There was also a little dwarf sheep next to it. It was trying to stand on tiptoes, resting its two front hooves on the cabinet, and stretched its neck to look around. The middle-aged woman couldn't help but smile, and immediately stopped being vigilant and continued to withdraw money on her own. When he saw the middle-aged woman withdrawing the money and leaving, Shang Guandandan showed a satisfied expression and folded his hands in his sleeves, as if an ignorant little old lady had watched someone else perform some magical operation. She doesn't have much money either. She only has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8 digits in her account. There was no one around, so the little sheep opened its mouth to speak. It just stretched its neck and was counting a few digits. It is a college student, and it is definitely not a primary school student who thinks that numbers over 50 should not appear in study and life. I can't rob ordinary people, Shang Guandandan thought for a moment, then fumbled around at the ATM. Normally I just observe outside, but today I came in person and naturally wanted to take a closer look. Shang Guandandan pressed every button on the ATM again. Let's rob a bank, steal their 18 billion, become a world-famous thief, and then launch a war after being wanted, and take the opportunity to conquer the world, Xiao Yang planned with a far-sighted vision. You still want to be wanted before you find out about the war? Hasn't the whole world already been trampled under your feet? What everyone is accustomed to is to occupy the TV station and announce that it has entered a state of war, and then you take over various government agencies and so on. Yes, the big sheep also came in, stretched out its hooves and pulled the little sheep, so that it could no longer lift its little hooves and lie on the ATM. The little sheep tilted its head left and right, thinking about the feasibility, and then the big sheep bit the back of its neck and took it out of the bank. The security guard who just walked over saw that the two sheep had gone out, so he reminded Shang Guandandan, "Little girl, if you need to come with your parents to handle business, you can't bring pets in." "I just want to grab some money, do I want to come with my parents?" Shang Guandandan frowned and pointed at the two sheep. "They are not my pets. The younger one is my goddaughter, and the older one is I'm a moth." The security guard was stunned. "What should I do?" "She said she was going to rob a bank. Should she follow the relevant plan? At least call the police or something." "But it seems that I can subdue this robber, but if I subdue her, I probably won't even get a bonus." "You go home and play." The security guard thought for a while and came up with the correct answer. Shang Guandandan ignored the security guard and walked around the bank again, observing how the counter handled business, and then was asked out by the lobby manager. Shang Guandandan stretched out his arms, clapped his hands and walked to the door of the bank. He saw that the big sheep was still holding the little lamb in its mouth. The little lamb was struggling wildly, but because there were people coming and going around, he didn't curse and just kept bleating. Yelling, it attracted more people to watch. After all, small sheep are incomparably cute, and big sheep are even more shocking. They seem to be able to subvert everyone's inherent impression of sheep. How can a sheep look so majestic, like a mythical beast coming to the world? There was actually a group of extremely tall beauties in the crowd, each wearing sneakers, and their height was basically over 1.8 meters, and they were slowly surrounding them. The lamb fell from the big sheep's mouth, because this team of extremely tall beauties turned out to be the women's volleyball team of Xiongda Business School, and An Nuan and Dong Huang were among them. "I think I've seen this lamb before." An Nuan looked at the lamb with its hair cut to pieces and recalled with some excitement that she had seen it in Bai Fen's space. When Bai Hui was playing at Nanshan Ranch, he posted a photo of him playing on the grass with this lamb. The lamb was very lively and liked to hunch over Bai Hui's body. "Where have you seen it?" "Super cute. Look at its eyes, it looks like it can talk. It's so exciting. I like big sheep. I wonder if I can ride such a big sheep," a girl said eagerly. "Go and try it," An Nuan encouraged with a smile. "Lu Chang'an has a sheepish face and encourages others to ride on your boyfriend." Unlike other girls who were excited when they saw cute things, Dong Huang just raised the corners of her mouth slightly, squatted down, her eyes fell on the big sheep, and observed with interest. "Lu Chang'an has already recognized it?" "This is Dong Huang. According to An Nuan's description, it is unlikely that there will be a second woman with such a domineering figure in the volleyball team. There are only two of them in the entire Xiongnan University, Dong Huang in front of me, and Qin Yinan who is pretending to be pregnant on Lushan Mountain. Even Professor Lu, who has excellent appearance, is still a little less coquettish in terms of domineering. Little lamb, let me touch its head." And Nuan stroked the lamb lovingly. Its hair had been cut into a mess. "I don't know who did it. If it was the owner, it would be a waste of its cuteness." The lamb jumped up and down, squirming in An Nuan's arms. It still felt more comfortable than the one named Cheng. The one named Cheng liked to use hard bras to create a false temptation. Every time he was pushed up by the lamb, he felt, there will be some insufficient feedback. Although An Nuan is not as good as the generals of the bamboo family, at least he is genuine. He neither deceives the bad old man Lu Chang'an nor deceives the baby Long Zhuntang. This is what Tong Suwu Buletin is talking about. "Hey," the little sheep hummed happily. "Who doesn't like the embrace of a beautiful girl?" "It seems to like me very much," An Nuan said in surprise. If Bai Hui knew that the lamb she had fun playing with had already fallen into An Nuan's arms, would she feel NTR? It was difficult to determine whether it was the same one. An Nuan took out her mobile phone and prepared to take a photo to show Bai Hui to make sure. At this time, the little sheep was keenly aware that there was a big Nina with richer products next to him. His eyes lit up, and he got into the arms of Dong Wang Huang. It was almost the same as when he was sleeping with Qin Yanan in his arms. The little sheep quickly turned around and loudly bleated at Lu Chang'an, meowing, asking him to come and hump together. Huh, and Nuan frowned in confusion. Dong Wang Huang didn't do anything. She didn't even look at the little sheep. She was obviously more interested in the big sheep. Why did the little sheep suddenly rebel? It was me who felt NTR's feelings. Little lamb, what are you doing? Dong Wang Huang smiled softly. This lamb exuded a very attractive aura, pure blood, but a bit muddy. It must have been in the early childhood period when he was just born, and he didn't feel much of the high-level oppression inherent in Dong Guanghuang. The big sheep is naturally extraordinary, and its aura is very similar to that of the little sheep, but it seems to have learned to restrain itself and stood quietly beside it. Just now I felt it was peaceful, but the big sheep suddenly got into An Nuan's arms, swaying back and forth like the little sheep. It was a bit surprising. The big sheep had been paying attention to him just now, and Dong Wang Huang wanted to take both sheep into his arms and play with them. Da Yang, you are so good, and Nuan felt as if she had been healed. The little sheep rebelled, but the big sheep fell into her arms. After all, within the team, she and Dong Wang Huang actually had a vague sense of competition. Just now the little sheep ran into someone else's arms, and she was more or less embarrassed. Aren't these two sheep so lustful? Specially pick beautiful women. It's better to choose a beautiful woman with a good figure. The girls on the volleyball team laughed and discussed again. There is no doubt that An Nuan and Dong Wang Huang are the most beautiful girls in the volleyball team. An Nuan originally increased the popularity of the team. Now the team manager in charge of Weibo operations, every day they all have to post their photos to attract traffic. This is my sheep. Those of you who took pictures just now must pay me. Everyone was taking turns taking photos with the two sheep. Shang Guandandan, who had been observing for a long time at the bank entrance not far away, came over and held the payment code in his hand in front of them. Ah! Everyone was surprised. Someone was herding two cute sheep and then cheating people out of money like this? Although it is common to collect money for taking photos like this, the little girl's skillful posture and the tone of her speech are full of routines, which makes people think that she is already familiar with this kind of thing, and she has deceived many people in this way. This is the photo assassin, those people on the street who wear Journey to the West props and costumes, or dress up as copper figures. At least everyone will know at a glance that they are taking photos for a fee. You are throwing two sheep here, forget it, people are not popular. In ancient times, the streets were full of routines. The most important thing is that this little girl is so beautiful that it is impossible to care about her. Looking at her clear and shining eyes, it seems that if you scan the code and pay for her, her whole body will light up. The feeling is hard to refuse. Okay, how much? 10 yuan per person. After paying, you can continue to take photos. There is no limit to the number of times, but be careful to queue up and don't scare the little sheep and big sheep. They are my goddaughter and moth. Haha, it turns out they are your goddaughter and moth, they are so cute. The girls scanned the code and paid willingly. And Nuan also paid. After everyone had almost scanned the code, he greeted Shang Guan Dandan, Dandan. He waved his hand gently and skillfully. Nuan is so smart. Shang Guan Dandan raised his hand. And Nuan was too tall, so he had to bend down slightly to touch her head. Shang Guan Dandan knew very well that Nuan waited until everyone had scanned the QR code before greeting her. This was to make it easier for Shang Guan Dandan to collect money, so that no one would come to An Nuan and say, "Oh, I turned out to be an acquaintance of yours. Don't be like this, make it cheaper," and so on. With this clever mind, she seems to be much smarter than when she first came to Lu Chang'an's house to spend the night. Shang Guandandan continued to hold up the payment sign, and there was still a little bird that looked very healthy but also delicious that he had not paid for. "Aren't you going to pay?" Shang Guandandan raised his head slightly, squinted his eyes, and pursed his lips into a line. "If you don't pay, you will be eaten." You can read chapter 25 of my new book The Princess Jianghu to know where the story of I'm Really Immortal continues. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 1128. Dongwang Huang took out his mobile phone and paid silently. Naturally, he was not in the mood to take photos or take selfies. Instead, he stood up straight and stepped back slightly. Yet, losing the tenderness of his arms, the little sheep yelled to express his dissatisfaction. After looking left and right, he chose the warm embrace and hugged her father back and forth. Seeing that it was back and An Nuan's self-esteem would no longer be hurt, Lu Chang'an naturally stepped away. He and the lamb squirmed together in An Nuan's arms. What did it look like? Shang Guandandan also took out his mobile phone, opened his WeChat balance, and looked at it with satisfaction. Although Xiao Tang was mainly cute, the moth must have played a role to some extent, and he was finally able to help the Queen Mother make money. As for the weak creature in front of her, it seemed to have something to do with her, but Shang Guandandan didn't care. She was a kind and weak Queen Mother, and she would not really eat others just because they looked delicious. The Queen Mother is now only interested in robbing banks. No, she is only interested in making money, getting rid of poverty and achieving a well-off life, which is exactly what Mozi often said, to have a positive, harmonious, and correct attitude towards life. "Nuan Nuan, what are you doing here?" Shang Guandandan said, holding the big sheep's ears. While An Nuan was here, it was inconvenient for it to disobey the Queen Mother, so it was natural to bully it. As for whether he would pull the Queen Mother's ears afterwards and make her flap her hands and struggle like a bird, that was a matter for the future, and the Queen Mother was not afraid. "We are going to participate in a warm-up event for the competition. We will gather there to shoot the video later." And Nuan stroked the overly active lamb. It was a pity that the big lamb ran away again and could not hug him left or right. "Then you have to be careful not to be exposed. Nowadays, many people will turn into small animals and then approach girls to do evil things." Before Shang Guandandan could finish her instructions, De Yang had already bitten her skirt and pulled her away. Shang Guandandan quickly raised the payment code sign because some people were taking pictures of her with their mobile phones, hoping that they could consciously do so. Zoom in with 2 fingers on the mobile phone screen and scan the QR code that is fading away to pay. When the little sheep found out that his father and godmother were gone, he immediately abandoned the ordinary embrace that he was not too nostalgic about, and ran away without looking back. Dongwang Huang finally breathed a sigh of relief. The little girl just now, when he realized her existence, he felt like a chick that had just hatched out of its shell, but he saw an eagle with its wings spread out, carrying a cloud that covered the sky, and the sun's shadows fell before her. It's just that the little girl who An Nuan called Dan Dan was able to control this feeling of oppression freely. After Dongwang Huang paid 10 yuan, the feeling of oppression disappeared. This little girl oppressed and intimidated her like this just to get $10. Are you sick? Dongwang Huang couldn't understand. After Shang Guandandan was pulled away by the big sheep, she came to the crowded pedestrian street. She held the QR code sign and was always paying attention to whether anyone was taking pictures of her sheep. As long as someone picks up their mobile phone and takes pictures, Shang Guandandan will walk up, hold the QR code sign with his head tilted, and use the majesty in his eyes to encourage others to pay. From the bronze statue of Huang Xing on the pedestrian street to the central square, Shang Guandandan had already earned more than 100 yuan. He even calculated the efficiency of taking money from the bank and making money in this way. The little sheep is only interested in robbing banks, and only if they have to rob 18 billion, and has little interest in making money. It bleats loudly, jumps on the back of the big sheep, and runs around the big sheep. Extremely cheerful. After playing for a while, he went home. After all, he had to go to class in the afternoon. Even if the lamb did something as big as gathering all his own wool to make wool underwear for his father, he would not be able to escape from studying. In the afternoon, Lu Chang'an held Zhu Huntang's little hand and took the car to school, and Shang Guandandan followed because she already knew that the girls who were within Nuan today were all students of Xiongnan University. This also means that female students prefer to take pictures of cute animals. There are business opportunities here. Shang Guandandan must come and observe, maybe he can find new business opportunities. Female students tend to have a strong love for cute animals on the street, but what about on campus? This is a youthful and exciting environment, and the interests and hobbies of female students may be more inclined to the beautiful male bodies. If he allowed Lu Chang'an to walk around the campus wearing only a pair of underwear, there would be countless girls coming to take pictures with him. Shang Guandandan was full of expectations when he thought that his cell phone had been playing the message 10 away. Although Lu Chang'an would probably not cooperate, would it be difficult to get the Queen Mother to do this? Today's experience of making money has greatly increased Shang Guandandan's confidence. I want Yan Chenzi to show off the wool underwear I made with such an idea. Zhu Huntang didn't resist going to school for the time being. You do something normal. Lu Chang'an's expectation for Zhu Huntang is that simple. He no longer expected her to grow up quickly and master advanced technology like her mother, or to be able to control the various abilities of super beings like him. As long as what she does every day will either burst his heart with anger, or shatter his positive and correct views that are highly consistent with ordinary people. Is there anything abnormal about this? Shang Guandandan loudly supported his Princess Maya of the colorful glazed pure white fairyland and the void-slaying dragon flame immortal. Everyone will show off everywhere after making a pair of underwear with their own hair. How can Shang Guandandan and Zhu Huntang turn against each other? Lu Chang'an couldn't help but fell into deep thought. Because Shang Guandandan was here, Zhu Huntang's education was almost meaningless. I made a quilt with my phoenix feathers and showed it off in front of you in order to show that what Zhu Huntang did was completely correct. Shang Guandandan took himself as an example. After saying that, Shang Guandandan opened his mouth, and quickly opened his hands to move in the air, taking back all the words he just said. I didn't say anything just now, did I? Shang Guandandan asked Zhu Huntang for confirmation. Zhu Huntang nodded. She didn't hear anything. Anyway, it wasn't a big fuss. It was normal for her godmother to be a bird and herself to be a lamb. You finally admitted that you are a phoenix. Lu Chang'an unexpectedly confirmed this. Shang Guandandan looked at Lu Chang'an in confusion. This was not the case at all. She didn't say anything, but he wanted to blackmail her again. So Shang Guandandan opened the thermos and drank water while peeking at him secretly to see if he had changed his mind. Of course Lu Chang'an will not change his mind as she hopes, and he is immune to her eyes that think he can achieve all goals. Lu Chang'an is a dragon, but the dragon is only his form at a certain period, but Shang Guandandan is different. Maybe the phoenix is her ultimate form? Is she really from the Phoenix dynasty in the dream? Beyond that, it's difficult to explain her origins. Old Lu, do you insist on Dandan admitting that she is a phoenix? Do you want to increase the legitimacy of your relationship with her? Zhu Huntang folded his hands on his chest and discovered it tactfully. Lu Chang'an beat her up. The afternoon class was in a large classroom, and several classes were held together. Lu Chang'an took Shang Guandandan with him and forbade her from wandering around the campus alone. Without the instigation of abnormal people such as Li Hongfang and Zhu Huntang, Shang Guandandan would not pose such a big threat to social stability. But this is a campus after all, and it is an important scene in Lu Chang'an's life as an ordinary person. He does not want frequent riots here. Then it would be better to take Shang Guandandan with you. Shang Guandandan experienced the atmosphere of a modern institution of higher learning for the first time, so he didn't resist it too much. He sat obediently next to Lu Chang'an and looked around. Zhu Huntang naturally went to Yan Qingcheng to show off. Did Lu Chang'an hit you again? After Zhu Huntang sat down, Yan Qingcheng asked with concern, because Zhu Huntang seemed to have just cried loudly, her eyelashes and eye sockets were moist, and her shoulders would shake uncontrollably from time to time, as if she could not breathe due to crying. Shun, caused by discomfort in the chest. Zhu Huntang was stunned for a moment, but there was nothing to deny, and he said nonchalantly, I play with him every day, in the morning, at noon, and at night. When we play, fights are inevitable, and the outcome is determined by the outcome. It's common for families to fight, and if I cry, he has to comfort me. When Tong 11 next to Yan Qingcheng heard this, she didn't quite believe it. It was very common for Lu Chang'an to beat you to tears, but he had never seen him coaxing you. Yan Qingcheng and Tong 11 have different ideas. How can a father not comfort his daughter? It's really enviable, but it's a pity that Yan Qingcheng is naturally well behaved. She only knows how to work hard to perform well, and she has no chance of making people lose their minds. Then how will he coax you today? Yan Qingcheng could only follow Zhu Huntang's words. A daughter who wants her father to only like her wants to show off how good her father is to her. Isn't this normal? Understand and cooperate with her. This, I don't really want to play with him right now, but I made a gift for Professor Lu. Zhu Huntang proudly opened the photo album on his phone and showed Yan Qingcheng the wool underwear. Tong 11 also came over and took a look. This. Yan Qingcheng made a voice similar to Zhu Huntang's hesitation and not knowing how to say it. What? Tong 11 was confused. Wool panties. Ah, Yan Qingcheng understood immediately. Zhu Huntang saw the slippers she made. You can compete if you want, but what are you doing? Yan Qingcheng looked as usual and did not laugh out loud. After all, she was her biological daughter. Not to mention making such a strange pair of wool underwear. Even if she cut off her hair and made a pair of hair underwear, Professor Lu Ji and she would also you will be very happy. So Yan Qingcheng praised Zhu Huntang a few words, saying that Zhu Huntang's behavior was sensible and a symbol of maturity. Professor Lu Ji and she must be very pleased and will pamper her even more. After listening to Yan Qingcheng's praise, not knowing whether it was sincere or a strange compliment, Zhu Huntang returned to sit next to Lu Chang'an in depression. In short, one thing she can be sure of is that Yan Qingcheng, who she thinks is the ultimate killer, does not pose much of a threat in Yan Qingcheng's eyes, otherwise Yan Qingcheng will definitely reveal. If this continues, Professor Lu will only love Tang Bao and will no longer love Chen Bao. Such a sad and timid look. Fortunately, I still have a trick up my sleeve. Do you still remember the virtual world game that you two and Zhongqing were responsible for? Zhu Huntang asked. Actually, as long as you make it real enough, the virtual world will be projected into a real world, Zhu Huntang said casually. Her theory has no scientific experiments or findings to support it, but let's put it this way, anyway. No one can disprove her statement. If anyone comes out and wants to prove that what she said is impossible, then send him to the Antarctic to feed the dinosaurs. It's possible Lu Chang'an recently read through a series of republished physics works, which brought back many scientific ideas in his mind. What Zhu Huntang said may not be truly achievable, but it is indeed interesting. Mom once wanted to make a harem game for you, but that kind of thing is based on our real world and has too many limitations. Zhu Huntang pointed in the direction of the underground base. My game has already been made. It's almost done, the name is, Prince's Harem. Do you want to go and have some fun? I guarantee you won't miss Shu. Okay, Lu Chang'an had promised her before that he would accompany her to have fun. Are you going to go to Dandan? Of course I want to go. If he doesn't have me to rule his harem, everyone will fight to the death and the family will be restless. Let's all go, we must bring Dong Dong with us. Together. The new world begins from now on, and the previous stories continue. Welcome everyone to read Xiaohua's new book The Prince's Jianghu. Welcome everyone to click on the link below to enter the new world.